Learn English grammar, affirmative and negative sentences. What are affirmative and negative sentences? An affirmative sentence gives us positive information. A negative sentence gives us negative information. A negative sentence must have any one of the following words in it, like no, not, nothing, never, nobody, no one, etc. An affirmative sentence and a negative sentence can also be an assertive sentence. Children, now let us understand how to interchange affirmative sentences into negative sentences without changing the meaning of the sentence. You have to follow certain rules and understand the following examples in order to interchange affirmative to negative. The first rule: always in the affirmative, in the negative you will write never and the opposite word of the verb, adjective or noun. So if we find the word always in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word never instead of that word always and make the opposite word of the verb, adjective or noun at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following example. In the affirmative, I will always remember you. So you see the word always is there in the affirmative. In the negative, you will write never instead of writing always. So you will write never and you will write the opposite of this word remember. To remember, it is a verb. So the opposite of remember is forget. So the answer in the negative is I will never forget you. Another example, he is always present. You see the word always is there in the affirmative. In the negative, you're going to write never. And you will write the opposite of present. So what is the opposite of present? It is absent. So the negative is he is never absent. The next example, affirmative. You should always speak the truth. There is always in the affirmative. In the negative, you're going to use never. So the answer in the negative, you should never tell a lie because you have to write the opposite of the truth. Truth is a noun. So the opposite of it is a lie. The next rule. If there is sometimes in the affirmative, then in the negative you will write not always and use the opposite word of the verb, the adjective or the noun. So if we find the word sometimes in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word not always instead of that word sometimes and make the opposite word of the verb, adjective or noun at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the examples. Affirmative. He sometimes smokes. So the negative is he does not always smoke. So instead of sometimes, you have to write not always. So the answer in the negative, he does not always smoke. The next example, the rich are sometimes happy. So instead of sometimes, you're going to write not always in the negative. So the answer is the rich are not always happy. The next example, a scholar is sometimes wrong. So sometimes in the negative, you're going to write not always. So a scholar is not always. The opposite of wrong is right. Wrong, to be wrong, is an adjective. And the opposite of wrong is right. So instead of sometimes, you're going to write not always in the negative and write the opposite of the word. Some more examples to interchange affirmative to negative. If we find the word much in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word not little instead of the word much at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following example. Ramesh has sold much honey. So you see the word much is there in the affirmative. You will write not little in the negative. So the sentence in the negative goes, Ramesh has not sold a little honey. So when there is much in the affirmative, your negative you will write not a little. Another example. If we find the word a little in the affirmative, we will write the word not much instead of the word a little at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following examples. I want a little milk. So you see the word a little is there in the affirmative. You will write not much in the negative, not much in the negative. So the sentence in the negative goes, I do not want much milk. Another example, we sold a little honey. This is affirmative. A little is there in the affirmative. So in the negative, you will write not much. So the sentence in the negative is, we did not sell much honey. So when there is a little in the affirmative, in the negative, you will write not much. If we find the word only after that any person in the affirmative, we will write the word none but instead of that word only at the time of changing it into negative. Look at the following example. Only God can help us. Do you see that? Only is there in the affirmative. There is a person. Now, who's the person here? God. Now, if I have to change it into the negative, I will use none but instead of only. So, the answer in the negative goes, none but God can help us. Yet another example. Only he can do the sum. Can you see this? Only, if there is only and the person. Here the person is he. So when there is only in and the person in the affirmative, then in the negative you will write none but. So the answer in the negative goes, none but he can do the sum. So if there is only and the person, then in the negative it is none but. If there is only and there is a thing, then you will write nothing but. So if there is only or anything or a thing in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word nothing but instead of the word only at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the example. Only the moon was visible. So you see there is only in the affirmative. There is a thing, the moon. So the negative you will write nothing but instead of only. So nothing but the moon was visible. Yet another example. I played only cricket. So again here it is instead of there is only and there is cricket. So the sentence goes, I played nothing but. Instead of only you're going to write nothing but in the negative. So I played nothing but cricket. The next example, I like only mango. So again, instead of only, you're going to write nothing but. Why? Because after only, there is a thing that follows. So when there is only and a thing that follows, then you are going to write nothing but. So the negative goes, I like nothing but mango. So remember children, if there is only and there is a person, then you will write none but. And if there is only and a thing in the affirmative, then in the negative you will write nothing but. If we find the word only after that any number or age in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word not more than, not less than instead of that word only at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following examples. The affirmative. Amit is only 16 years old. So there is only and there is a number or an age. So in the negative you will write Amit is not less than 16 years old. The next example, in the affirmative, you got only 50% marks in English. So the negative you could write, you got not more than 50% marks in English. So remember children, if there is only and there is a number and an age, then in the negative you will either write not more than or not less than. The next example, if there is both and, then in the negative you will write not only but also. So if we find both and in the affirmative, we will write the word not only but also instead of that word both and at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following example. In the affirmative, both Rita and Geeta were beautiful. So your negative will be not only Rita but also Geeta was beautiful. Another affirmative sentence, Raymond is both honest and faithful. So the answer in the negative is Raymond is not only honest but also faithful. So you see, when there is both and in the affirmative, then in your negative you will use not only but also. If we find the word must in the affirmative sentence, then we will write the word cannot but cannot help instead of the word must at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following example. In the affirmative, he must buy a grammar book. So you see there is must in the affirmative. So in my negative, I will write cannot, but, or cannot help. So the examples in the negative, he cannot but buy a grammar book, or he cannot help buying a grammar book. The next example, we must love one another. Can you see there is must in the affirmative? So in the negative, you will write cannot but or cannot help. So the answer in the negative is we cannot but love one another, or we cannot help loving one another. Yet another example, you must listen to your teacher. The negative will be you cannot but listen to your teacher. So children, if there is must in the affirmative, then in your negative you will write cannot but or cannot help. If we find the word all in the affirmative, then we will write the word no instead of that word all, and make the opposite of the word. If opposite of the verb or the adjective or the noun that is there in the affirmative sentence at the time of changing it into negative. Look at the example. All men are mortal. So there is all in the affirmative, right? And we have to use no in the negative, and the opposite of this word mortal. Man is a mortal. So all men are mortal. So the negative will go no man is immortal. Next example, all must die. So you will write the negative as no one can escape death. The next example, all must submit to destiny. The negative is no one can escape his destiny. So children, if there is all in the affirmative, then you will write no and the opposite word, the opposite of the word that is there in the affirmative. If we find the word for good or forever in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word never instead of the word forever or for good, and make the opposite word of the verb at the time of changing it into negative. Look at the following example. In the affirmative, I have sold the house forever. So there is forever in the affirmative. Instead of forever, you will write never. There is the verb sold here. You will write the opposite of that verb sold. It will become buy. So the answer in the negative is I will never buy the house. Another example, he has left the village forever. There is forever in the affirmative. So instead of forever, you will write never. Left. Left is the verb. The opposite of left is come. So the answer in the negative, he will never come to the village again. Next example in the affirmative, I have given up smoking forever. Instead of forever, you will write never. So the answer in the negative, I shall never smoke again. If we find the word every in the affirmative, we will write the word no instead of that word every, and make opposite of the word. The word could be a verb or an adjective. Look at the example. Everybody is dependent. So there is every or everybody. So instead of that, you will write no. Now, since it is every year, it will be no. Since there is body here, nobody. So nobody is independent. Opposite of dependent. Dependent is an adjective. So opposite is independent. Next example, affirmative. Everyone loves flowers. So instead of everyone, you will say no one. No one, the opposite of loves is hates. To love. Love is a verb. The opposite of it is hate. So no one hates flowers. Next, affirmative. Everyone loves him. So no one hates him. Opposite of loves is hate. Everyone, no one. Or you could also write it as there is no one who does not love him. If we find the word many in the affirmative sentence, then we will write the word not a few instead of the word many at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the example. I have many friends. That is the affirmative. So there is many in the affirmative. So you will write not a few. So your negative will be I do not have a few friends. Next example, they gave me many gifts on my birthday. So the negative goes, they did not give me a few gifts on my birthday. So if there is many in the affirmative, then in your negative, you will write not a few. If you find a few in the affirmative, then in your negative, you will write not many instead of that word, a few, at the time of making that sentence into negative. Look at the example. I have bought a few books. So there is a few in the affirmative. So in your negative, you will have not many. So the answer in the negative, I have not bought many books. Another example, he ate a few mangoes. Again, there is a few. So you will write not many. So the negative is he did not eat many mangoes. So children, keep in mind, if there is many in the affirmative, then not a few. And if there is a few in the affirmative, then you will write not many in the negative. If we find the word have to or has to in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word cannot but or cannot help and the ing form of the verb instead of that word have to or has to at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following example. I have to buy a new house. There is have to in the affirmative sentence. So in the negative, you will write cannot but, or it could be cannot help buying. So the sentence in the negative, I cannot but buy a new house, or I cannot help buying a new house. If there is as soon as in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word no sooner had than instead of that word as soon as at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the example. As soon as I arrived home, it began to rain. So the answer in the negative, no sooner had I arrived at home than it began to rain. Next example, as soon as the man saw the tiger, he ran away. So in the negative, no sooner had the man seen the tiger, he ran away. Some more examples to change affirmative sentences to negative. If we find the word as in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word not less than or not the comparative adjective than instead of that word as at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following example. Rupali is as beautiful as Sonali. Now remember children, as beautiful as is the positive degree, but this is an affirmative sentence. We have to change it into the negative. So you will use not less than. So you will say Rupali is not less beautiful than Sonali. Another example, Hassan is as strong as Karim. So the negative is Hassan is not less strong than Karim. So you have used not less than. You could also use not the comparative adjective and than. Like this example, Hassan is not less strong than Karim. That's a negative. You could also write it as Karim is not stronger than Hassan. So you have used not the comparative adjective and than. If we find the word for the last time in the affirmative, then we will write the word never instead of that word for the last time. Look at the following examples. I warn you for the last time. So the negative is I shall never warn you again. Another example, they came here for the last time. So the negative is they will never come here. If we find the word alone, and there is a person in the affirmative sentence, we will write the word none but instead of that word alone at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following example. God alone can help me in this situation. So there is alone and there is a person. So here it is God. So you will write the negative as none but God can help me in this situation. Another example, mother alone loves her child. So again, there is a person followed by alone. So here again in the negative, you will write none but mother loves her child. A few more examples to interchange affirmative sentences to negative. If we find to in the affirmative sentence, we will use so that instead of the word tutu at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the following examples. He is too weak to walk. So this is the affirmative. You will make it into the negative by using so that. So the negative is he is so weak that he cannot walk. Another example, the child was too tiny to climb up the tree. So you remove too and you use so that. The negative becomes the child was so tiny that he could not climb up the tree. If we find the superlative degree is the highest degree, the est. Now here it is the best. If we find the best in the affirmative sentence, we will use no other instead of that word in the superlative degree, the best, at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the example. In the affirmative, Arun is the best boy in the class. So the negative goes as no other boy in the class is as good as Arun. So you have actually changed it into the positive degree, but it is the negative because there is no, the word no. So you will use no other boy in the class is as good as Arun. Another example, Tendulkar is the best batsman in India. The negative will be no other batsman in India is as good as Tendulkar. So you see in the superlative degree, if it is the est, the best, then you will write no other. You will begin with no other. And if it is too, you remove too and you will use so that in order to make the sentence negative. If we find than any other, than all other in the affirmative sentence, we will use no other instead of the word than any other, than all other at the time of changing the sentence into negative. Look at the example. Sumit is better than any other boy in the class. So that your negative begins, you write no other boy in the class is as good as Sumit. Another example, Mumbai is bigger than all other cities in India. So again, you will write no other city in India is as big as Mumbai. So remember children, when there is than any other or than all other in the affirmative, then your negative you will begin by writing no other. Basically, you have to make it into the positive degree. But because the word no is there, therefore it is a negative sentence. Using helping verb plus not and without. Look at these examples. The affirmative sentence, you have power. So the negative goes as you are not without power. So which is the helping verb? Are. Are is also called as the auxiliary, or it is also called as the helping verb. So you are plus not and without power. The next example, affirmative, I hate you. So again, I am is the helping verb. You use not and without. So I am not without hate for you. The next affirmative example, we respect you. So you'll write we, you'll use the helping verb are, not, without, respect for you. So this is another way in which you change the affirmative into negative by using the helping verb and not and without. Using helping verb not and without, this is to make the sentence negative. From affirmative, you are going to make it negative. Using not fail to. So you have to use not fail to make the negative. Look at the example. In the affirmative, he plays football. So your negative, he does not fail to play football. Another example, speak the truth. The negative, don't fail to speak the truth. The next example, I saw the Victoria Memorial Hall. The negative, I did not fail to see the Victoria Memorial Hall. So using not fail to make the negative sentence. Making double negative. Every will be no and un will be added with the verb. Look at the following example. The affirmative. He answered every question. So you will write the negative as he left no question unanswered. So you see where that every question is there, you have used no question and you have used unanswered. Next example, you read every story. So again, you left no story unread. So you left no is there, story unread. Affirmative, the boy solved every problem. So the negative, the boy left no problem unsolved. So this is another way in which you change affirmative to negative. One is writing not fail to, and the other is where you're making a double negative. Every will be changed to no and un will be added with the verb. If the sentences are universal truth, you should make the sentence into a yes no interrogative negative. Children, refer to the video in which the explanation of interchanging assertive to interrogative has been taught to you. We shall do the following examples. In the affirmative, the sun rises in the east. This is a universal truth. So you have to make it into an interrogative, a yes no interrogative. Now, why is it an interrogative negative? Let's find out. So if you refer to that video in which we learned about interchanging assertive to interrogative, it tells us that if there is no auxiliary, then we have to use do, does, or did. Now, why do or does? Because the tense is present. The sun rises in the east. Therefore, you will use do or does. Now, so you will write it as does not the sun rise in the east. Look at the next example. The earth is round. This is also a universal truth. So you have to make it into the interrogative negative or a yes no interrogative. Use the auxiliary is from here. So is not the earth round? The next example, honesty is the best policy. Again, you use is from this affirmative itself, and you will write the negative as is not honesty the best policy. So all these are examples of a yes no interrogative negative sentence. A method to memorize the rules of interchange of sentences from affirmative to negative. Children, we have done a number of examples to interchange sentences from affirmative to negative using all these rules. So now we are just doing a recap of all the rules. You learn the rules, memorize it, and you will be able to interchange the sentences from affirmative to negative. So in the affirmative, if there is always, the negative you will use never, and you will use the opposite word of the verb, of the adjective, or the noun. If there is sometimes in the affirmative, then the negative you will use not always, and again the opposite word of the verb if there is an adjective or there is a noun in the sentence. If there is must in the affirmative, then you will write cannot but or cannot help. If there is all, then the negative you will use no and the opposite word of the adjective, or if there is an verb. For good or forever, then in the negative you will use never and the opposite word of the verb. Every, then you will use no and the opposite word of the verb, or if there is an adjective. Have to, has to, you will use the negative cannot but or cannot help and the ing of the verb. As soon as, you will change it to no sooner had than. Many, not a few not many. Much, in the negative it will go not a little not much in the negative. Only if it is followed by a person like God or he, then in the negative you will begin by saying none but. If there is only and a thing, then you will start with nothing but. If there is only and there's a number or an age, then in the negative you will write not more than or not less than. Let's go through some more rules to interchange affirmative to negative. As in the affirmative, in the negative you will write not less than, or you could use not, the comparative adjective, and than. If there is for the last time in the affirmative, then you will write never in the negative. If there is alone in the person, then you will use none but. If there is two, then you will use so that. If it is a superlative degree like the best, then you begin with no other, make it into the positive degree. If there is than any other, than all other, this is the comparative degree, then again you make it into the positive degree, or use no other in the negative. You can also make the negative by using helping verb like am, are, is, plus not and without. Refer to the examples given with regards to using helping verb not and without. Then using not, fail to. You can use not, fail to in order to make the negative. Refer to the examples. Making double negative. You can also make a double negative. Here also you have to see the examples. If the sentence is a universal truth, you should make the sentence into an interrogative negative, or an interrogative yes no type of a sentence.